You think he's pulling away because he lost interest after sex? What if I told you he's watching how you handle the silence? The moment after intimacy isn't just a pause, it's a test. And most women fail it without even realizing. See, when a man is truly vulnerable with you, physically, emotionally, whatever, there's a moment of disorientation right after. Not because he regrets it, but because he's recalibrating. He's asking himself, what does this mean? Now here's the truth, men don't come back to the women who cling. They come back to the ones who breathe, who smile, stretch, get dressed, and go live their life. That doesn't mean you play it cool or cold. It means you stay warm, but grounded. Like, that moment was special, but I'm still whole without you. When you don't need reassurance after intimacy, he feels something deeper. Respect, mystery, safety. Most women think intimacy is the finish line. But for a high-value woman, it's just a chapter. And she doesn't chase a plot twist. She lets the story unfold. Let me be clear. The woman who doesn't beg for closeness right after sex, the one who lets the silence be soft instead of scary, that woman haunts him in the best way. She doesn't ask, so, what are we now? She lets him ask himself, how do I get more of her in my life? He comes back because she showed him a version of closeness that didn't come with pressure, that didn't try to trap him in the moment, that respected the ebb and flow. If this is landing for you so far, pause and think, how do you normally act after intimacy? Do you fill the silence because you're afraid of losing him? Or do you trust that the space is part of the connection? Let me know in the comments, because that's where the real shift starts. The highest form of attraction is not what you give in the bedroom, it's what you do with the quiet that comes after. That's where your energy speaks louder than your words. So instead of texting, I miss you already, text nothing. Instead of trying to fix the vibe, trust that if it's real, it doesn't need fixing. Remember, men remember the women who made them feel safe to be masculine without needing to be rescued afterward. They remember the softness and the strength, and that's why they come back again and again. Have you ever noticed how some women seem to hold a quiet, invisible power over a man's heart long after their relationship ends? Even as time goes by, no matter how far they drift apart, he still finds his way back to her. It's not because of tricks, appearance, or even strong chemistry. The real reason lies much deeper, hidden in the complex layers of a man's inner world. One of the most influential psychologists in history, Carl Jung, discovered why this truly happens. Jung found that men don't just fall in love with a woman, they unknowingly place their deepest hopes and ideals onto her. He called this concept the thema, a kind of inner feminine imprint that shapes what a man longs for, needs, and can never really forget. And when a woman understands this powerful force, she doesn't just become someone a man likes, she becomes someone he can't stop remembering. So if you've ever wondered why some men go back to certain women even after being intimate or after a breakup, the answer has nothing to do with playing games. It has everything to do with something far more meaningful. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly how to leave that kind of unforgettable impression. There's something almost magical in how a man's feelings remain tied to a specific woman, even when his mind tells him it's time to move on. Jung explained this deep emotional pull as the thema, an idealized image of the feminine that lives inside every man's unconscious mind. This isn't just about being attracted to someone or liking their looks. It runs much deeper than that. From a young age, a man's interactions, especially with key women in his life, like his mother, sisters, or early romantic experiences, begin to shape this hidden inner picture. It becomes a quiet standard he uses to compare all women to, often without even being aware of it. When he meets a woman who reflects this hidden image, the draw becomes almost impossible to resist. She doesn't just catch his eye, she wakes up something deep inside him. That's why certain bonds feel destined, like they were always meant to happen. A woman who lines up with his thema becomes more than just a partner. She becomes like a reflection of the parts of himself he's still trying to understand. And that kind of connection is something he'll feel pulled back to again and again. Although physical closeness can create a short-term bond, it's emotional closeness that leaves a long-lasting mark. Physical attraction can fade if there's nothing deeper holding it together. But when someone makes us feel emotionally open, it's hard to forget. Jung believed that real connection happens when two people meet, not just on the outside, but in the deepest parts of who they are. When a woman creates a space where a man feels truly understood, where his dreams, fears, and even his contradictions are seen without criticism, she becomes someone he can't replace. That's why short flings rarely leave a lasting impact, but a relationship filled with emotional honesty can stay with a man long after it's over. The body may move on, but the heart remembers. A woman who gives that kind of deep closeness becomes part of him, stitched into his emotional world, and that's not a tie he can easily let go of. This brings us to something psychologists call the unfinished business effect, that feeling that something important was left unresolved. Human minds naturally search for closure. When a relationship ends without it, the inner mind feels unsettled. But this pull isn't about drama or emotional chaos. In fact, messy behavior or mind games often make a man stay away for good. What truly keeps him thinking is the sense that something meaningful was left undone. Unspoken words, unshared feelings, or emotional layers never explored. Jung knew that the unconscious mind thrives on mystery and symbols. When a woman has emotional depth, when she carries a calm sense of confidence, when her feelings are real but not forceful, she leaves just enough space for his mind to wander back to her. He may walk away, but if the emotional door stays slightly open, curiosity will often lead him back. The truth is, men don't return to women who chase them. They return to the ones who, simply by being themselves, remind them of the parts of their soul they aren't ready to let go of. There are women who stay on a man's mind long after they've walked away, not because they begged for his attention, but because their presence naturally pulled it in. Jung spoke of this special kind of presence as the eternal feminine, a deep, timeless energy that's far more powerful than just physical looks or charm. It's about having inner depth, the feeling that there's always something new and meaningful to learn about her. A woman who reveals herself little by little doesn't hide or play games. She allows herself to be seen slowly, layer by layer, so that each new moment feels like discovering something rare. This isn't about being hard to get, it's about being real and full of life. When a woman has a rich mind, strong passions, her own goals and thoughts, she becomes like a book he can't stop reading. He's drawn to her not because she's holding back, but because she keeps growing and showing more of who she truly is. And in getting to know her, he ends up finding new parts of himself too. Equally powerful is the woman who lives with emotional independence. Jung talked about something called individuation, the process of becoming whole within yourself. That's what makes this kind of woman so attractive. A woman who doesn't rely on her relationships to define her, who doesn't cling or seek constant approval, carries a quiet confidence that's impossible to ignore. This isn't about acting distant, it's about being so sure of your own value that your presence feels like a gift, not a plea. That kind of confidence creates a beautiful contrast. The less she asks for, the more he feels drawn to offer. Emotional independence doesn't push a man away. It gently invites him to meet her where she stands, without pressure. A man might turn away from neediness, but he will come back to the woman who reminds him of what it feels like to be whole. Then there's the rarest quality of all, authenticity. In a world full of masks and fake smiles, a woman who shows her true self stands out like a candle in the dark. Jung's shadow theory teaches that the deepest connections form when we stop pretending we're perfect and instead accept our flaws as part of us. A woman who's emotionally honest, who can be open without falling apart, kind without being fake, makes others feel safe to do the same. She doesn't need to play tricks or use pressure. Her realness becomes a mirror, showing a man not just who she is, but who he could be if he stopped hiding too. And that kind of truth is something he'll hold on to, whether he stays close or goes his own way. But maybe the strongest kind of mark a woman can leave happens in the quiet, simple moments after closeness, not in big declarations, but in gentle memories that stay. When a woman can be close to a man without holding on too tightly, when she can be present without needing promises, she becomes part of his memory in a deep, lasting way. It's in the way she laughs freely, without worrying how she looks. It's in how she listens without jumping to respond. It's in how she lets a moment be enough without needing it to be more. These are the things that stick in a man's senses long after the moment has passed. Because what makes a woman truly unforgettable isn't just how she loves him, it's how, in her presence, she teaches him to love himself. And that's a lesson he'll never really leave behind, no matter how much time goes by or how far apart they end up. There's a kind of wisdom in stepping back that very few people truly learn. It's a quiet way of pulling away that says more than any loud attempt to be noticed. Jung spoke of this with the idea of enantiodromia, the natural swing of things from one extreme to the other. When a woman steps back gracefully after being close with someone, she doesn't create distance out of fear. She allows space for longing to grow. This isn't about pretending not to care or using silence as a weapon. It's about respecting the natural flow of relationships. Just like the ocean must pull away before it comes crashing back to shore, emotional space can help a man remember the value of what he once held close. A woman who understands this doesn't storm off in anger or hang on out of fear. She gently returns to her own life, quietly leaving the door open, but never waiting in front of it begging him to walk through. And in that open space, something surprising happens. His mind begins to fill the silence with thoughts of her. He wonders, replays memories, feels her absence like a soft but steady pull in the back of his mind. The irony is that by not chasing him, she becomes someone he can't help but want to chase. There's something incredibly powerful in quiet confidence, a kind of strength that doesn't need to be spoken aloud. There's a big difference between saying you know your worth and showing it through how you carry yourself. This kind of self-belief doesn't try to prove anything. It simply is. It doesn't fight for a seat at the table. It sits there as if it always belonged. When a woman holds this kind of energy, she builds an invisible force around her, one that's hard for any man to ignore. He may walk away, but he often finds himself returning, drawn back by the quiet power of someone who doesn't need him to feel complete. This kind of confidence isn't pride, it's the peaceful knowing that she's already enough. And in a world that's always noisy and full of insecurity, that kind of calm presence stands out. A man may forget compliments or grand romantic words, but he doesn't forget what it felt like to be near someone who radiated this quiet strength. Real growth is the most attractive thing of all, not the kind of growth you put on display for others to see, but the real, deep changes that come from living life fully. Jung's idea of individuation teaches that we become most magnetic when we're on the journey of becoming who we're meant to be. A woman who focuses on growing, learning new things, developing emotionally, deepening her beliefs, becomes like a moving piece of art, always revealing something new. Men don't return to these women just because they miss the past. They return because they're curious about who she's becoming next. When a woman chooses to grow, she stops being just a part of his story. She becomes someone who encourages his growth too. And this creates a relationship that doesn't depend on staying close all the time. Even if they go separate ways, their growth continues. And if their paths cross again, it's even more meaningful. A woman who's always learning and changing can never be left behind for long, because she always offers something new. And each time, that new part gives him a new reason to stay. At the center of all real attraction lies one timeless truth. Authenticity always lasts longer than manipulation. Tricks and tactics might get attention for a while, but only honesty builds the kind of bond that can survive anything. A woman who doesn't try to control outcomes through games isn't weak, she's strong enough to be real. She knows that trying to win someone with fear or strategy might work in the short term, but will never lead to something lasting. When interactions are based on truth instead of control, something powerful happens. The connection becomes deeper than surface feelings and touches something within the unconscious. Jung understood that what we push away sticks around, and what we fully accept can transform us. The woman who connects honestly builds relationships where a man doesn't feel forced. He feels free and chosen, and that difference means everything. It's the difference between a short-lived fling he forgets and a lasting bond he keeps returning to, like going back to a place that feels like home. The strongest connections between men and women often don't feel like accidents. They feel like awakenings of something ancient and meaningful within us. Jung called this the collective unconscious, the inherited universal part of the human mind that holds our deepest instincts and desires. In this unseen world live archetypes, timeless images of the feminine that have shaped love and attraction across all of human history. When a woman lives out the energy of these archetypes, the passionate lover, the strong queen, the wise guide, she doesn't just get a man's attention, she reaches something deep in him that feels timeless. These aren't roles to pretend to be, they're real parts of a woman's soul that, when lived honestly, speak louder than anything she could say. The lover archetype isn't about using seduction tricks, it's about being fully alive in your body and open in your emotions. The queen isn't about control, it's about owning your space with self-respect and natural authority. When these qualities are sincere, not forced, they touch a part of a man that's been shaped by centuries of history. They speak to something in him that remembers what real feminine power feels like, long before he ever had the words to explain it. That's why some attractions feel bigger than the present moment. They aren't just about two people. They're about something deeper recognizing itself in the other. But the most powerful shift happens when projection turns into something real. At first, a man sees his ideal woman through the lens of what he wishes for, his thema. He puts his own needs, hopes, and hidden longings onto her like she's a screen. But the women who truly become unforgettable do something rare. They help him move beyond fantasy and start seeing reality. They help him recognize himself more clearly, not by becoming the dream he imagined, but by gently showing him what's possible if he grows. She stops being just a reflection of what he wants and becomes a reason for him to grow. The relationship moves from being about excitement to being about evolution. A man might leave someone who only gave him fantasy, but he keeps coming back to the woman who helped him understand himself. That's the deeper role of the feminine, not to complete him, but to wake him up to the fact that he was never broken in the first place. When love serves this bigger purpose, it's no longer just about being together. It becomes a journey they take together to become better people. The deep part of the human mind doesn't just want us to find love, it wants us to find ourselves through love. And that's why the rarest kind of bond doesn't break with time or space. It lasts not because it makes sense, but because it touches something eternal in both people. The twist is, the more a woman truly lives these energies, not pretending, not performing, but actually becoming them, the more she becomes like a light in a man's inner world. She stops being just another person and starts feeling like a symbol of something his soul knows is essential. That's why sometimes men come back years later, even after other relationships have come and gone. Because some connections go beyond time and reason. They tap into something sacred that never really fades. What many men are really searching for isn't just a partner. It's the special kind of presence that a particular woman represents in their inner journey. The collective unconscious moves in quiet, mysterious ways, using attraction as a guide to help us discover who we truly are. When two people meet at that deep level, their bond becomes part of something much greater than either of them. It becomes a meeting of ancient energies, a dance of timeless patterns that has been happening since humans first began to love and will continue long after their individual stories end. The quiet moments after closeness carry a power that many women don't fully see. It's not just about the passion or closeness shared, it's about how she returns to herself with ease and self-respect. That's what leaves the most unforgettable impression. There's a beauty in offering warmth without needing anything in return, in showing care without becoming attached. That fine balance creates space for real desire to grow. Instead of picking apart every word or moment, the wise woman knows that true connection lives in the space between presence and absence. She doesn't pull away in silence to make a point. She simply follows the rhythm of her own life again. Her job, her dreams, her friendships, all continue without forcing anything. It's not a lack of care, it's a quiet trust in how love naturally unfolds. By focusing on her own path instead of his reactions, she becomes like the moon, always present in his sky, but moving in her own direction. The irony is that this kind of inner completeness is what makes her most attractive. It mirrors a deep truth in the human mind, that the things we can't fully hold on to often become the most fascinating. One issue many modern relationships face is the constant need to overthink every moment, every word. But Jung offered a different idea. He encouraged letting the unconscious speak in its own strange, symbolic way. When a woman chooses not to overanalyze every message, pause, or delay, she creates space for something richer to grow. The unconscious doesn't speak in clear sentences. It speaks through feelings, symbols, and sudden insights. When a woman lets go of needing instant clarity or constant reassurance, she taps into an older wisdom, a wisdom that understands some truths are only heard in quiet moments. That doesn't mean ignoring your instincts or accepting poor treatment. It means trusting that the right connection will find its way naturally, without constant pressure. Sometimes a man pulls back not because he's losing interest, but because he's doing the inner work needed to truly value the connection. The woman who can keep living fully without putting her life on pause often becomes the one he thinks about most when he's finally ready. Jung's idea of the anima isn't just about attracting men, it's about waking up the most alive and creative parts of yourself. Cultivating your energy isn't about pretending to be feminine in a way others expect. It's about growing the qualities that make you feel truly alive. Your creativity that doesn't fit in boxes, your quiet passion, your emotional depth. These things are magnetic because they're real. When a woman spends time connecting with her inner self, through art, through nature, through writing or quiet reflection, she becomes like fresh water in a dry world. Men may not know why they're drawn to her. They only know they feel more alive when she's around. The magic shows up in simple daily choices, the book that challenges her thinking, the hobby that makes time fly, the boundaries that protect her peace. As she builds a deeper relationship with herself, she becomes the kind of woman who doesn't just attract romantic attention, she creates lasting, soul-level recognition. And these are the kinds of connections that go far beyond surface charm. When her practices stop being things she does to impress and start becoming part of who she truly is, something beautiful happens. She becomes a woman who's walking the sacred path of becoming more herself, leaving a deep mark on the hearts of those lucky enough to meet her. You can see this most clearly in how she handles the tender moments after intimacy, not by suddenly disappearing or clinging tightly, but with the calm certainty of someone who knows her value doesn't come from any single moment. She understands that the strongest bonds are built in freedom, not pressure, and sometimes the most loving thing she can do is to live so fully that her absence is felt just as deeply as her presence. In this place of mature, self-assured femininity, where she expects nothing but still gives something meaningful, she becomes unforgettable, not just because of what she does, but because of how she makes him feel, not only when they're together, but especially when they're apart. What becomes clear from Jung's teachings is that the women who stay in a man's heart, who he returns to in thought long after the moment has passed, aren't the ones who relied on surface-level attraction. They're the ones who touched a deeper part of him beyond the physical. These women didn't play games or chase validation. They simply lived from a place of emotional depth, quiet strength, and real honesty. A woman who holds mystery without being fake, who's independent without being distant, and who's real without needing to apologize. She becomes more than a memory. She becomes a guide, a mirror, a compass that leads him toward becoming more whole himself. Physical attraction can start a flame, but it's the richness of a woman's spirit that keeps that fire burning long after time and distance have stepped in. So now it comes back to you. Which of these ideas speaks to you the most? Will you spend more time building your inner world so that you become naturally magnetic? Will you try the gentle art of stepping back and allowing space for real desire to grow? Maybe you'll focus on your own growth, trusting that simply becoming more of who you truly are will make you unforgettable. Whatever touches your heart, let it be a reminder not to change yourself for anyone else, but to become more deeply who you already are. The right people will be drawn to that. Leave a comment and share what insight meant the most to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found value in this way of looking at love and psychology, don't forget to like and subscribe for more ideas on how ancient wisdom can still guide modern relationships. There's still so much more to explore together, and I'll be right here to walk through it with you. Until then, remember, real love doesn't live in chasing or controlling. It lives in becoming the kind of woman whose presence is powerful and whose absence is unforgettable.